How often do you sit down and convey your vision to your team? You see things 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in advance in some degree of technicolor, whereas most people are living their life black and white. They can't even see past next week's paycheck. He says, I convey maybe 1% of my vision to my team. If I gave them 2%, they would all quit. How many people on the planet are like you? I don't know, I could probably count 5. He says, I could probably count 4. Is there anybody on the planet that knows your vision as well as you do? And he says, as a visionary in your business, this is going to be hard for some people to understand entirely. I asked Dean the question first, but I'll tell you what Tony said first and what I asked him first, and then it'll make a little bit more sense. So I said, Tony, when you got to a point where you were just overwhelmed with opportunities, at what point and how did you decide to start saying no, right, to great opportunities coming your way? He's like, do you think God put you on this planet to say no to opportunity? You just struggled for the last 10, 15 years to create opportunity. Now you're asking me how to say no to them? The question you should be asking is, how do you say yes to everything? And how do you hire operators to handle all those yeses that you say? You have operators, but it sounds like you need probably another operator and another operator over some other businesses that you're doing. I asked Tony this question. He's like, well, you have operators, go get another operator. So I spend my whole life creating opportunity, and then you're telling me I should say no to stuff? He's like, no, go and find operators to handle those. And he's like, I'm zero involved in any of my businesses. And I go, okay, what role do you play in your companies? He's like, the same role you play. You're the person of influence. You're not the CEO, you're not the COO, you're not the president, you're not the whatever. You're the guy that creates the idea, you're the guy that comes in and influences what happens, but you step away and you let the business run by itself. And for a long time, my partners and employees and other people would call me crazy, chaotic, etc. Tony says to me, he says, how many people on the planet are like you? I don't know, I could probably count 5. He says, I could probably count 4. Out of 8 billion people, there's only 4 people you're allowed to take advice from. Don't take advice from your employees. Don't take advice from your business partners. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I'm giving you permission to say, no, I know what I'm doing. Please follow through with what I say. Take some of these barriers and these chains that I think other people that I shouldn't have been taking advice from were giving me. So that leads into my question with Dean. I said, Dean, how often do you sit down and convey your vision to your team? You see things 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in advance in some degree of technicolor, whereas most people are living their life black and white. They can't even see past next week's paycheck. He says, I convey maybe 1% of my vision to my team. If I gave them 2%, they would all quit. Your team cannot handle your vision. Is there anybody on the planet that knows your vision as well as you do? And he says, my CEO probably understands 20% of my vision. That's it. Going back to when you're asking questions like, how do I get my first deal? 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 Remember, that question seemed like Mount Everest at the time. The problems you're avoiding today are keeping you from solving the problems of tomorrow. And so a lot of people just get stuck in like, how do I pay my bills? How do I pay my bills? Well, bro, those problems have been solved. I realize what Mount Everest really is, and this is what Dean says. He says, the Mount Everest that I'm currently facing and that you're currently facing is how and when do you give your vision and your plan of the company to the people that are in charge of your company. You have to get better at being a leader. You have to get better at reading the room. You have to get better at cultivating leaders, and you have to get better at watching and adapting to people that start getting glazed over as you just melt their brains for 30 minutes. So a lot of it was just being around people that are on the same path as you and understanding the power, the desire that you have to go and do big things, and that you have to become a different person. I mean, look at Molly, right? Molly, massive upgrade for me. When I brought Molly on the team, it was because I had recently upgraded something in my mind that then the universe was like, okay, you now deserve this person. So Dean's like, you got to change everything about who you are between now and the next 3 years to the point where you don't even recognize who you are today in order to be where you want to be. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Here's the other thing I realized going to that mastermind. I realized nobody wants to do what I do. I'm so grateful that I have the heart that I have, and I have the natural desire, like genuinely want to be here. People I've hung out with in the last 2 days to 2 years, they call me crazy because they genuinely don't actually want to hang out with their people.
We are grateful.
I'm grateful. Like, that's the thing too. Like, I'm grateful that I have the desire every morning that I'm like, I can't wait to go to Kevin's open house. It's not, man, I got to do it because, no, dude, I'm like excited to be here. It's like there's a natural level of care that doesn't exist with other people. And so you have to realize that that is one of your greatest superpowers, and that you're not crazy, and you will be called crazy, you will be criticized, and people will not be able to understand you. Only take advice from people that you actually want to be like, emulate, or people that are on a path similar to where you want to go. And when somebody tells you crazy, that's the bumper on the bowling alley. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you're on the right path. When somebody calls me crazy, I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm doing the right thing.
Well, honestly, like what you said earlier too, like that was spot on, where you were the first person that gave me permission to be me.
Yeah.
And that was like amazing. I didn't even know I needed permission for that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Something like unlocked in my brain, and I was like, I can actually go do the thing I want to do. And
Yeah, because everybody else around you is like somebody who has a 9-to-5 job, and they are told what to do and what not to do all day long. They check in. I have to be relied on. I always knew it was me inside of me, but the problem is everybody kept putting shackles on me. Everybody I was around was like, no, don't do that. Here, let me put a 20-pound weight on you. Oh, don't do that. Let me put a 50-pound weight on you. And you carry this weight around you, and it's called the crazy weight. You just think you're crazy. And then when you get around other crazy people like me, you're like, oh, wait, hold on. And I'm like, yo, dude, take that shit off. Hold on. You know, and so Tony was like, took this weight off and drops it over here.